The Student Room held a live Q&A on site all about personal statements, with experts from the University of Leicester and Swansea University taking part. The experts answered lots of questions all about personal statements, and here's a roundup of some of their best advice.
Your personal statement should talk about your academic skills as well as your academic interest. It can also have your extracurricular activities and talk about the hobbies you do outside your subject, as these will present you as a well-rounded person. All these things will show your passion for the degree and will link back to why you want to study it. In terms of the structure, you could structure your statement with an opening paragraph which talks about yourself, introduces yourself, makes an impact. You can then move on to your middle paragraphs about your skills. You could have a paragraph on your academic skills as well as one on extracurricular. And then you can end on a paragraph revisiting all the things you've talked about, maybe talk about your future career plans and end on a positive note.
So in terms of impressing me, I always find the best personal statements are the ones that can cleverly link things together. So starting off with your personal interest in the subject that you're applying for, bringing together your academic strengths that you've developed over your time at school and college, backing that up with what you've gone on to do with some extra reading, maybe your work experience or volunteering or online study, and then someone that can bring it all together at the end with all the linked points together.
I think the best personal statements are the ones that are really personal. So when you see people have had really unique experiences, or they have a clear interest in a certain area of the subject, or they've done really good extracurricular activities and they've gone out their way to show that they are different. What doesn't impress in a personal statement often is negative experience or negative statements. So you want to keep everything really positive. If you've had an experience in your life that maybe wasn't so positive, but it benefits or explains why you want to go into your certain degree area, then you can mention that. But just mention something negative and then moving on isn't very helpful. So always keep it as positive as you can and link back to your degree choice.
So in terms of what doesn't really impress me in a personal statement, I think the main thing I see a lot are students listing things for no apparent reason, whether that be things that you're good at or things that you're interested in or things you like doing outside of school or college, with no context as to why you've included those things. And so avoid doing that. Same goes for things like quotes. If there's no real reason for it to be there, leave it out. And you also don't need to tell us what subjects you're studying, because we already have that on the rest of your application. So I think there are three common mistakes that I see with personal statements year on year. The first one is students not including a conclusion, so it kind of just finishes and it looks like you've ran out of space. The second one is trying to define the subject rather than telling us why you really enjoy the subject. And the third one is when you're trying to use evidence or examples as to why you're interested in the subject, that not being quite a relevant example. So the go-to one for that is saying you like CSI, so you're applying for criminology.
A common mistake that people make with their personal statements is to include a lot of cliches. So cliches are things like saying, I've always wanted to do this, or since a very young age I knew I was going to do this. These are used a lot more commonly than you'd think. And when admissions tutors are reading through personal statements, if everyone has these same sentences, they'll struggle to set them apart. So you really want to use unique language that will make you stand out and that is true to your experiences. If you're struggling to stick to the word count in your personal statement, it's great to go over a first draft and check your sentence structures. Make sure you're doing point, evidence, explain, and that all those explanations are linking back to why you want to study that degree or why you're a great fit for the degree. Also check your grammar, make sure you're not waffling, and check how many sentences you're actually using per point. Because if they can be cut down, then you can drastically reduce your word count.
The main thing to think about if you're really struggling to stick to the word count within your personal statement is to go back to the question as to why you're writing it. So is everything in your personal statement complementing an application for the degree you've chosen? It might be that you've included some things that are really good about yourself, but actually they are just really good about yourself. They don't necessarily complement the degree you've applied for. So go back through the examples you've used and check they are completely relevant to what you've applied for. So the importance placed on personal statements will differ based on the subject you're applying for, as well as the universities that you're applying to. It will depend on whether there is an interview process as part of the application, what your grades are, your predicted grades in relation to the entry requirements, the number of applications for the course, and then what you go on to achieve as well. So it is a really important part of the process, but the level of importance will differ from university to university.
A personal statement is a really important piece of work as well, as it can showcase who you are to a university. So admission students can find out about your personality, your experiences, your achievements, and you can really showcase how literate and coherent you are in your writing, which is essentially what they're looking for in a candidate.
So we do recommend talking about your A-levels in your personal statement. You don't need to list what you are doing because we already have your qualifications page. But what you can say is within my A-level, in whatever subject you're doing, I really enjoy a particular aspect of it. And I've gone on to do some additional reading in that space. And this is one of the key reasons I'm applying for that subject. So definitely talk about them, but give them some wider context rather than just telling us I'm currently studying A-levels in X, Y, Z.
You can start by picking out the skills, things like communication, group work, problem solving, skills you use throughout that qualification and that are transferable to your degree and your career after. You can also talk about subject-specific elements. If you really enjoyed certain topics that you can see are in your future degree, definitely mention those too.
It can be a good idea to include any relevant reading that you've done to back up your interest in a subject or to further develop your learning. The main thing I'd advise is ensuring that extra reading is complementing what you're saying in your personal statement. So if you talk about an example of what you've read, what has that then led you on to do afterwards? Does it back up the point you're making, rather than just saying you've read a random article that doesn't really add any context? So make sure it's all joined up.
So you could start by saying, I'm really interested in this area of my degree, and when I read this article, it made me even more interested, and this will help me in my chosen course because. If you're applying to two subjects which are quite different, try and find common themes in both or common skills that are used, such as independent research or analysing arguments. You can then try and find examples of when you've shown these skills or used these skills, and then you can kind of link the two degrees together from that.
So if you're applying for courses that are quite different to each other, the main thing I'd suggest you do is print out the course descriptions for those subjects, get a highlighter and highlight any similar characteristics that you might need, any transferable skills that are the same that the subjects are looking for, whether that be things like communication, teamwork, group work, any academic strengths that are needed to be the same as well, and talk about those within your personal statement so you're talking to both subjects. It's not easy to talk about yourself in a positive way in a personal statement. We like to be quite self-deprecating most of the time. So the main bit of advice I normally provide is to talk to other people. Talk to your friends, talk to your teachers, talk to your family, talk to your employers, talk to people that have known you for an extended period of time, and ask them what do they think you're good at. And the more commonly used or heard phrases or characteristics that you hear is the ones to focus on.
It's not easy to talk about yourself in a personal statement, but a good way to start is in your early paragraphs, make a direct link between the course requirements and your experiences. So for example, if you were to do engineering and maths is a key requirement, you could talk about your A-level maths, you could talk about how maybe you've helped with younger classes to help them do maths, or maybe you've read a good article recently. It doesn't have to be a brag sheet about what you've done, it can be stating the facts and evidence in them. If I could give you one more piece of advice, it would be to make your writing as concise as possible so you can get your message across clearly to the admissions tutor. Do multiple drafts and ask a teacher, family member, or even a careers advisor to look over it for you and give it a proofread.
So I think the most important thing to remember with your personal statement is this is your opportunity to really show off. Tell us everything great about yourself that is linked to the degree that you're applying for. Use evidence to showcase all the additional fantastic stuff that you've done to back up that interest and develop your knowledge, and really focus on the question that why you're applying for that degree. Be positive, be concise, and enjoy writing about yourself.